Wouldn't you notice, as soon as I pushed the live button, I had to cough. Hey, good. How's it going, scrappers, recyclers, and everybody that is involved in businesses that revolve around the scrapping and recycling world? Welcome to Shark Scrapper Live. Sorry about me choking as I came in here. I don't know what that was all about. Oh, man. It is great to be here. Cruiser Mac, Gulf Coast, Scrapping Irish, Earl Fowler, Desert Scrapper, Wannabe Scrapper. Great to have you all here. Looking forward to having a lot of fun. Bush Dog, welcome into the stream. Let's see, it looks like Gulf Coast was the first in, like about an hour or so ago. He just came in and was hanging out for a while, followed by Bush Dog and then Irish Scrapper. So anyway, welcome you all. Great to have everybody here. We've got some fun stuff to talk about today. Excuse me if I can get done coughing and choking to death here. We're going to be talking about what happened with gold this week, because that was really interesting. We're going to be talking about copper and some of the thoughts in industry about copper, because there's some pretty interesting stuff going on there. We've got two really interesting stocks. One of them was specifically requested by one of my viewers. So we're going to look at Intel versus Texas Instruments. This is going to be really fun. So without any further ado, it is time to dive into our first precious metal discussion here, gold prices. Now, you'll recall that I use the APMEX site to look at gold prices. I use APMEX and Kitco when I would buy and sell hard currency like gold and silver. No drama, no fuss. You know, you make the transaction, you buy it, you sell it. I've never had any trouble using either one of them. So what happened with gold? Well, here we are. We're looking at the 24-hour, and man, you know, gold was doing well here, right? It was up here. We actually went over $2,000 an ounce this week, right? So, I mean, we were almost at $2,011 an ounce. And then what happened here? Why did we see it come down and start to plateau here in just the last 24 hours? Well, let's go look at the 3-day here. That's always a good perspective. So you can see that gold was kind of slowly trending down, then pops up here, and now starts back down again. What's going on here is all tied back to two things. The first thing was the recent failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank. These two U.S. banks, kind of mid-tier kind of banks, they got themselves in a bad situation because they had heavily invested in long-term bonds that they weren't able to quickly turn into cash. And then when people started, and then to make it worse, they went out and told everybody that they needed to raise some money. And of course, that spooked everybody who started pulling their money, and the banks couldn't generate enough cash to pay the accounts. And so there was a classic run on the banks. The Fed stepped in and said, okay, I'll stop. We're going to, they took over those banks and they made people whole. All the depositors were made whole. That stopped what's referred to as the contagion. Now, the reason why we saw the prices climb like that was because people were running from cash into security. And when people run into safety, they usually go into gold. We talked about that some last week. That's nothing new to all of you. You understand that. There was also a problem at Credit Suisse, and then USB stepped in and stabilized Credit Suisse. So globally, the contagion was halted as well. Now, the other thing that's playing into this also with the Federal Reserve is that this week, the Federal Reserve rose the interest rate by 25 basis points, 0.25%. And so it was a little bit less than what some people had feared. A lot of people had prognosticated that that's what the Federal Reserve Bank was going to do. And so that brought a level of stability and calmness back into the market. So that's why we see gold prices came down and then stabilized. Now, what'll be interesting here is, so here's the 1 week. There's that rise, the drop. Now you can't see the stabilization when we look at the 1 week time frame, because it's just not enough out here to take a look at that. But what we should expect some amount of normalization as the market digests all this information on what was happening with the banks and interest rates, and what's happening with the economy. So gold, man, popped above $2,000 an ounce. Is it going to go back to $2,000 an ounce? We're going to need, and I hate to say it, right, because it's terrible, but in order for gold to get back up above $2,000 an ounce, we're going to have something go wrong again, right? So that's a tough one. But gold is still a good, strong investment metal. There's a lot of people that during these times of folks are a little bit jittery, they're not quite sure. We're going to see more people, more banks, getting the gold built up again, because it's that safety mechanism that people like to have. Now, we remember last week, I think it was, when Chris from BoardSort made the comment that they're not going to be raising their prices unless they see things kind of stabilize at higher levels for a couple of weeks. Here's exactly why you don't see scrapyards and e-waste buyers react to these short-term fluctuations, because they've got to watch and see if things are going to be relatively stable before they make those kind of changes. See you scrapping, Roger. Great to have you in here, man. Let's see. I want to real quick. We're going to bounce off of gold for a minute, go over here and take a look at Roger's update on the truck. Truck seems to be running well. I'm happy with it. That is awesome. Not so much with GoFundMe, who still has not released the funds. Man, that sucks. Yeah, I don't know enough about GoFundMe to be able to really tell you even what to do there. Hopefully, they're gonna get on that and get that worked out for you. But I tell you, who has done some GoFundMe events in the past that might be able to help you, Mike, E-Waste Mike. He's done them for people, and he might have some tricks or some information that could help you figure out how to help move that along with them. So the other person that has done GoFundMe runs for people, Bob Gilskills, so he might be able to help you out as well there, man. So one of those two guys, if you reach out to them, they might have some information to help you out. All right, so gold is going to keep on doing its thing. We're going to see some, ups and downs. Hopefully everybody didn't just throw everything into gold, which is the safety tip of the week. Don't put all your eggs in the same basket. Safety doesn't have to be necessarily just what we do to protect our eyes and our ears and our fingers and toes and that kind of stuff, right? We have to think about our financial safety, as well as our hobby, our scrapping hobby or business safety. If you put all of your investments in one company, or all in gold or all in silver, man, you're stuck. That's it. You're going to ride those waves, and you're going to have to deal with them the best you can throughout all of those ups and downs and swings and gyrations. If you diversify your portfolio, whether it's diversified your investment portfolio, diversifying your scrap portfolio, then you have a more comfortable situation going, because you can ride out things a little better. So for instance, right now in my shop, I've got a bunch of copper, and I'm going to be watching for copper to go up. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more here. I keep selling aluminum. I sell a bunch of my insulated copper wire. I keep selling the e-waste because that's what's, giving me my cash flow. But I keep some of that stuff aside in strategic reserve as well. I've got a number of different pots of, literally pots of metals, okay, bins of metals, that allow me to take advantage of the ups and downs and swings as the market plays out. So there are a number of things that we can do, even small time folks like us can do, to help ensure that we don't have all of our finances and all of our scrap and recycling capability all in one basket. The other thing is, if at all possible, make sure you have a relationship with more than one scrapyard or more than one buyer. I sell to at least 4 different groups on a regular basis. That allows me to compare prices. It allows me to always have a place to sell material that I know if one of them goes south and, shuts up, or they've got a problem or something like that. The point of not having all your eggs in one basket is just, it crosses a lot of different areas for us to keep in mind. So take a look at your financial situation, take a look at your scrap situation, and ask yourself, am I too dependent on one particular aspect, one particular bank, one particular whatever it is? That's just a good safety rule to have. Desert Scrapper cracks me up. I put all my money in rocks that I find in the desert. Hey, Desert Scrapper, you better be careful digging holes out in the desert, man. You don't know what bodies you're liable to dig up out there. That could be a bad thing. Oh man, yeah. Bush Dog is saying, that's my plan for this summer, to check out more scrap yards here in the Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah, that's a good plan, man. Good plan. Wannabe can't imagine a world with 4 scrap yards. Well, now, to be fair, it's not 4 scrap yards that I'm dealing with. Well, I guess, because technically Board Sort is also a scrap yard. So they're not all local to me. So I've got 3 that are local to me, plus Board Sort, and then I have specific buyers. I really have quite a few more than 4, but 4 that I deal with regularly. All right, well, there's another good one. JR Cat, I think he's telling Desert Scrapper, if you dig up a body, check for gold teeth. That's a whole different kind of mining, and I don't think that's exactly what they meant by gold mining. But hey, do what you got to do, right? Oh, gracious me! All right, so copper. Let's go ahead and make the move over to copper here. So we saw copper kind of drop off. Here's the 24-hour spot on copper. You can see it's dropped down. Now, of course, it stabilizes here over, through the weekend till things pick up with the week and people start doing their stuff. Prices are always moving up and down even throughout the weekend, because it's Sunday here in the United States, but it's already Monday over further to the west. So things never really sleep in this kind of world. So, but we see here the 30-day copper spot. Really, it had some fluctuations, but you can see that it was kind of ended where it started here on the 30-day line. And if we look at the 6-month copper, we see a good rise throughout the 6-month period. And when we look at the 5-year, well, this was the beautiful rise that we all saw here earlier this year. So but not this year. Sorry, wrong one. And let's do that. And then let's do this. I don't want that great big old thing. So we had copper start climbing back here in February, March of 20. Then we have some ups and downs going on. Then we have the crash, and then we see it coming back up again here in this year. So we're happy with what we see copper doing. Now, what I thought was really interesting was, as I was researching copper this week, I came across this article, and the headline on the article was "Copper Following Gold," and I'm like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting. Let's see what they got to say." Now, this was from Kitco Roundtable, and I'm just going to read this for you because I want to point. There's a reason why I'm going to read this and then point this out to you all. Gold started off the week strong due to wobbles in the banking sector. Credit Suisse, the European bank giant, was taken over by UBS during the weekend. The markets then turned to the Fed and its rate hike. The Federal Reserve raised its main interest rate by 1/4 point, but the Fed also suggested that rates would not continue to rise. A weakening U.S. dollar also worked in favor of metals, noted Kitco contributor Jim Wyckoff. On Thursday, April gold was at last up 47.70 at 1,996.9, and May silver was up 0.509 at 23.30. The lower dollar also worked in copper's favor. The metal reached $4.11 a pound midweek. Looking ahead, McGee noted that resource sector should get a boost when the senior gold producers announced their first quarter returns. Now, here's what I thought was interesting. The headline for this article was that copper was rising for the same reasons that gold was. But the article didn't say anything about what it didn't go into that at all. All it said was that the lower dollar should help copper. Well, that's not telling me anything. That doesn't help me. And that's why it's important that when you're researching this stuff, that you read a few different articles at least, go to a number of different sources, because sometimes you see that headline, you read the first paragraph, and then you move on. Especially this day and age, that's the way a lot of people operate. And then what happens is you didn't get past enough of the headline stuff to see the real meat of the article and the discussion, which in this case was pretty much non-existent. So let's dig a little bit further, though, and let's go to what I always like to do when I'm looking at things like the industrial metals like copper. So we're over here, and I'm just going to go right down to the 5-year London Metal Exchange copper stock level. I've mentioned this ever since my very first live stream here, the importance of comparing both the prices of our industrial metals with the stock levels of the industrial metals, and what we can see happening with the copper warehouse stocks. They have just continued to go down. If you tie the tops together, you see them going down. If you tie the bottoms together, you also have a little bit less steep a slope, but it's still going down. We are using up the amount of copper that's in reserve. So it did not at all surprise me when I saw the article from Business Insider that talked about copper could possibly go up 33% in the next year, as inventories are at their lowest level since 2008. And then it went on to talk about essentially what I've been saying here, that copper inventory levels keep going down. And this is especially worrisome because copper is going to be such an important metal in the green industries moving forward. So with everything that is going to be causing demands on copper, there isn't the copper around that we're going to need. And as China opens up and gets back into gear more and more and more, we're going to see even greater stress on copper. Now, the The S&P Global also predicts that by 2035, the world will be lacking. Get that now. Are you ready for this? By 2035, the world is going to be short 1.6 million tons of needed copper. All right. So here's what I think we ought to do. We all ought to get together, get ourselves a big warehouse, and let's start collectively stocking up copper. What do you think? We can start collecting up all that copper. We can get some of our melting crowd to be putting it into bars, and we can be stacking these copper bars. And boy, howdy, we're all going to be millionaires on copper by 2035. And what, that's only 12 years from now. So, that's manageable, right? Let's see. So all we need to do is we're going to need a great big warehouse, probably, I don't know, somewhere out in the desert or something like that, maybe where land is cheap. And, someplace where we can store all this. Oh, wait a minute. I just got done talking about not putting all your eggs in one basket. Oh, man. Dadgummit. Don't you hate when you contradict yourself like that? All right. Bottom line is copper is going to keep going up. So what I would suggest is if you've got copper and you don't need to sell it for your cash flow, then I would say, keep stacking some of it aside. Keep putting some of that copper aside, because I think we're only going to continue to see copper prices rise for the long term. Now there's going to be these, ups and downs that go on, right? But in the long haul, we're just going to see copper prices continue to rise. So, hey, nice junk, California. Great to see you. Simon the Celt Scrapper. Great to see you here. Roadhog, welcome into the live stream. Great to have everybody here. So what do we talk about this every time we talk about copper. I ask you all what you're doing with your copper. So what have I done recently with my copper while you're dropping your comments about what you've done with copper? I have continued to sell my number 2 insulated copper wire as a cash flow item. So I don't hang on to it. I sell it every week. And I'll generate, I don't know, $40 to $100 a week on number 2 insulated copper wire. Then I'll also sell Romex that comes in any of the number 1 insulated copper wire that I'm not going to strip, because some of it just isn't. You're not going to get a whole lot out of stripping it. Then I did not in the last week sell any of my copper, my number 2 or my number 1 copper. The week before, I did sell some number 2 copper and some Bear Bright. So I have been accumulating mostly number 1 copper and Bear Bright. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space in order to get some good weight built up. And it is something that I get kind of routinely that comes in. So it's a good thing to be hanging on to. Number 1 copper and Bear Bright. So let's see, what have you all been doing out there? Wannabe says he's been picking it up off the floor. Okay, well, yeah, got to do that. That's it. Got to do that. Roadhog says I'm just storing it up. Yep. Okay, cool, man. Store it up. Now, are you keeping all of it, or just certain types of it? That's kind of a, what kind of copper are you keeping? Let's see. Simon the Celt Scrapper. I keep copper wire, and I use it instead of rope to bind grape teas. You have a vineyard? Oh, wow. We have a winery in our midst. It's a shame I don't drink wine anymore. I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I used to enjoy good wine every now and then. I never had the kind of taste to be able to differentiate a lot. For me, it was just, did I like the taste of a wine? I didn't care what the age was or the vintage or any of that kind of stuff. It was just, did I like the taste of it? Anyway, let's see. JR Cat. Yep, it stacks nicely. Yep. So, and Roadhog responded, anything he can find. Okay, cool. Yeah, I hear you, man. We're scrappers. That's what we do, right? You know. Let's see. Desert Scrapper. What I've been doing, not hoarding random rocks I find out in the desert. Okay, don't hang onto those rocks. Let's see. Bush Dog. I keep seeing these videos of people cleaning copper with ketchup. Yeah, I kind of agree. Yeah, I kind of agree. You know, unless your number one copper becomes very heavily corroded, it's not like getting a little bit of the oxidation layer on there is going to decrease the value. And bare bright is bare bright. So again, unless you're letting your bare bright stay out in the environment where it's getting very heavily corroded, I agree with you, Bush Dog. I don't see any reason to be trying to get your copper looking all pretty and everything, unless you're doing something with it. Right now, if you're like our friend Ian Matthews and you are a metal artiste, then that was number one. We said his name one time. Hey, does it count when we cross over to Scrapping Irish's stream if we say the man whose name won't be said more than 3 times? I don't know. Anyway, unless you are a metal artiste and you are using that metal to make things of artistic value, I don't know what good it does to clean stuff up like that. You know, it's just it's a good ways to catch up, I guess. I don't know. Yeah, don't tell Ian. Okay. So Simon says he's got a small vineyard, 20 trees. Oh, he eats it. Oh, okay. All right, no wine, just making it. All right, well, that's cool too, man. You know, when I was a kid, I lived next door to a family that had some wine bushes. It was fun, you know, when they were blooming. I used to love to go over there and because they had more grapes than they knew what to do with. Wannabe says I should drink more alcohol. Yeah, no, I gave up alcohol many years ago when my wife was first diagnosed with cancer. She stopped drinking to try to just help her body deal with cancer and chemo and radiation and stuff. I stopped drinking to support her, and we never picked it up again since then. So no big deal there. Let's see. Cruiser Max says all tastes the same after the first bottle. Yeah, that's a good point. And Chad Dar, welcome. Hey, great to have you here, man. He has a heating and cooling business in Alabama, breaking down everything, stacking the coils, selling the number 2. Very good approach, Chad. And yeah, you're in a great place to be getting copper, man. There are a lot of people that either want to have people like you as their friends or business associates, or wish they were in the business like you're in, because you're getting that stuff all the time. Now, those coils can take up a lot of space, though. So, you know, hopefully you've got the room to store those coils, because, yeah, they can. Some of them are pretty big. Let's see. Bush Dog is saying, yeah, just sell it as it is. Why waste good ketchup on copper? I mean, come on. Simon the Celt Scrapper, put your copper in dry sand at least. Yeah, just don't put it in the ground. All right. You know, if you want to put it in dry sand or something like that in a bin or a bucket, okay, that's cool, but don't put it in the ground. Our friend from the United Kingdom, whose name we will not say, has told us stories of a good friend of his who buried a bunch of copper in the ground. And then, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years later, when he went to go recover it, it wasn't there anymore. And there was just a whole bunch of blue junk all over the place on the, you know, the dirt and everything had turned kind of blue. So yeah, you don't want to be, don't bury it in the ground unless you put it inside a nice, good, strong container, waterproof kind of container, and then bury that in the ground. Boy, howdy, now you're talking about a lot of work. That's worse than ketchup. Let's see what other things have come in here since we knock it off. Urban Prospector. First of all, welcome, but knock it off. We're not going there. The scrapper whose name will not be mentioned until we get over to Scrapping Irish's live stream. Okay. Let's see, Kelskar, about 20 trees back in 2012 from Crimea. Oh, so he has delicious grapes from the land of his childhood. That is so awesome, man. That is very cool. Very, very cool. But more to the subject, he's selling number 2. And worse is a very productive way for the market. Yeah. So selling off that number 2. So Chad Dar, first time here. Welcome. Yeah, I mean, it's great to have you here. You're very welcome here. So anyway, he worked for a scrapyard for 3 years while going to AC school. Man, that is freaking awesome. That is just awesome, man. I mean, no kidding. You put yourself through school. You've got a good trade, one that's got a certain amount of recession proofing involved in it, and one where with a bit of effort on your part in marketing and stuff like that, you can grow that business. You can get to the point where you can hire other people so that you're not having to do everything yourself. And Chad, anytime you want to reach out to me to talk about the business side of things, feel free to do so at sharkscrapper@gmail.com. I love talking about business and things, so by all means, feel free to reach out to me. Okay. So we've talked about gold. We've talked about copper, and we had our safety note, and we were starting to talk about business. So with Chad's comment about, having started his business, that brings us to our business note of the week. Always start a business with the end in mind. Now, I know that is kind of one of those trite little sayings that a lot of people say, but you really do got to think it through a little bit. In Chad Dar's case, my guess is that he didn't want to work for somebody else. He wanted to have his own business. And so for him, it's, I'm going to start this business and I'm going to, earn a good income from it. And what he may not have done yet, and Chad, I look forward to, hearing your comments or seeing your comments down below, is Chad may not have asked himself at this point, what am I going to do with this business? How long am I going to keep doing this? Some people start a business just to make the ends meet, just to pay the bills. And at some point, they're going to say, well, I'm going to pass it on to my son or daughter. Well, if you don't have a son or daughter, or your son or daughter is not interested, then what are you going to do with it? Then you're going to sell it maybe. So that means that you want to grow the company to get to a point where it can be sold. Other people would just say, yeah, you know what, when I'm done with, when I've got enough money to retire and I don't have to work anymore, I don't care. I can just shut it down and make it go away. The reason why this is an important question to ask yourself when you start a company or, shortly after you get going, and then to keep readdressing as you keep moving, is that you make certain decisions based on what you want the end state to look like. You'll certainly make some of those decisions very early on when you start the company as to what kind of company you start. So in America, we have this thing called the Limited Liability Corporation. It's perfect for small businesses that you don't intend for them to become something big that gets bought up and has stocks and shares and all that kind of stuff, which would be a C corporation. So in the US, you can either do an S corporation or an LLC as a way to start a small business that is much simpler, less paperwork and hassle than starting a C corporation. Now, there's pluses and minuses to that. But the other reason why you want to think about what you're going to do with that company is because, let's say your intention is, I'm going to start the scrapping company and I'm going to sell it in 10 years or 15 years. Okay, in that case, you are going to be making some very different business decisions than somebody who is just saying, I just need to make the money, and in 10 or 15 years, I'll just deal with it then, or I'll hand it off to my son or daughter. Because if you're going to sell an asset in 10 or 15 years, you have to, no kidding, have developed an asset. You'll need to be owned. You'll have, instead of just leasing property, you're going to want to have bought a property for the physical location of the business. You're going to want to have developed all of the contacts in the network that business needs that is what would be referred to as goodwill. So that when you sell that company, you're selling not just assets, but a whole business process and a system and employees that the new buyer can come in and make that thing keep working and grow it from there. So it's really important to understand what you're going to do with the business. Now, if you're starting the business because you want to hand off a legacy to your son or your daughter, then you're still going to be making similar kind of decisions. Do I buy property? Do I buy forklifts? Do I grow into different areas? But you're less concerned about making the business look financially good to be sold, as opposed to being financially strong to turn over to your son or daughter when it's their time to take over and run with the program. So there's nuances in each of those. And it doesn't mean that you have to make the decision right away, but you should always have something in the back of your mind that says, why am I starting this company? What am I going to do with this company down the road? Because otherwise what can happen is you can get 10 or 15 years down the road and you're scratching your head going, man, I'd really like to sell this company, but it's not in a good place to be sold right now. So it's going to take me 3 to 5 years more to get it ready for sale. So always be thinking about what you're going to do with the company when you get going. Bill Fitzsimmons, welcome. Great to see you. Everyday Solars, always great to see you and have you on board. Hope y'all have been having a great day. So wait a minute, I need a swig of coffee here. Excuse me just a minute. I also want to take advantage of this minute to remind everybody that we are now supporting the Atlantic Shark Expeditions. This was started by Dr. Neil Hammerschlag. He used to be the director for the University of Miami Shark Research and Conservation Program. He has now started this organization as a way to really focus in on the education and experiential aspects as well as scientific research of sharks. The way this program works is they have expeditions that people can join, and it allows them to go out with Dr. Hammerschlag and other researchers and learn firsthand about various sharks. You do not have to be a scuba diver. Snorkeling is fine. In some cases, you don't even have to get in the water. When you go out on the Great White Expedition, you may not want to get in the water, but you can if you're qualified, and they will have shark cages. So this is a great program. They operate out of Jupiter, Florida, out of the Bahamas, Tiger Beach, Bahamas, and then up in Nova Scotia, Canada, where they are researching a new great white hotspot that has been discovered. Really good program. I'm looking forward to working with Neil. The tag that we raised money for in 22, our 2 for 22 campaign, will be one of the first tags that they will deploy in their great white research program and tagging off Nova Scotia. And I still haven't decided if I'm going up to Nova Scotia to join in that expedition or not. We'll see when the time comes along. But for now, that's a very exciting thing to be a part of. So if you're interested in going on one of those expeditions, I urge you to go to their website, click into the newsletter, look at the expeditions. If you have any questions, you can reach out to them directly or let me know, and I can talk to Dr. Hammerschlag and get you some answers as well. Harold Haas, welcome. Welcome from Norway. It's great to have you here. Great to see the internationals represented. Man, we got folks coming in from all over. Grass Cutter, Palmer, Tim. Great to see you, Tim. Great to have you here, man. Man, we're having a lot of fun with folks from all over the place. That is very cool. Okay, so let me get this set up now for our stock discussions. Now, a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago or so, somebody left a comment. Somebody had watched this live stream after the fact in a replay. And George Richardson, Scotland for me. Cool. Welcome. So anyway, somebody left a comment on and said that Intel was one of the stocks that they recommended. So here we go. Here's Intel. Let's see. Wait a minute. Tim, gotta drop you down here, man. Sorry. So Intel, I got it. You know, this is interesting. So where to go with this? All right. So here's what I just got to be blunt, right? With Intel. I used to really like Intel. And for quite a while, I was tracking them. Their dividend was actually better than 1.9. It had been up in the almost 3% category for a while. Now their share price is down here at 26.95, which makes them a good entry point if you want to get into the semiconductor world and in businesses in semiconductors. But now remember, what's important for me when I'm looking at stocks, right? I want to see that either the cash flow per share, the earnings per share, or the dividends per share, and primarily the dividends per share, have gone up every year for the last 17 years. That's my going in criteria. They have to have at least accomplished one of those. Well, in case of Intel, they didn't make it for cash flow. I mean, look at all this, right? 7 years that they went down, earnings per share, 6 years that they had decreases. So they didn't make it on any of those counts. But up until recently, they were qualified as a Div 1 because they only had this one flat change here. So in going from 13 to 14, they did not increase. They were flat. We see the 0, and we allow one flat year. Well, now we get over here. Now remember, when the numbers are bold like they are here, that means that the books have not been finalized, and this is no surprise, right? It's 2023. The books haven't been finalized. But this is a pretty steep decrease, going from $1.46 a share to 74 cents a share. I don't see how they're going to get it back up to $1.46. That's not going to happen. That means that this will be a down year, and we do not allow down years in our dividend decision. So Intel would no longer be qualified for my investment standards using these kind of numbers, if this is the way these numbers play out, and there's no reason to expect that they won't. If we look at the graphical representations, it's really clear, what's going on. You've got they grew. They were able to have a little bit of growth because of COVID and people working from home and the need for a lot of electronics. But coming out of COVID, there were some real challenges here. The markets, people have bought what they're going to buy. The markets are dropping. There's supply chain issues. Yeah, it's just not good, right? So they have crashed. Now, some people would say, well, that's kind of to be expected. Aren't they all going to have those kind of problems? Well, it didn't have to be. It doesn't have to be that way, really. And Texas Instrument is a great example of it doesn't have to be that bad. So here we look at Texas Instruments, and we can see that they're at 2.9% for their dividend. Now, I usually want 4%, right? But sometimes if the company is one that's got the potential to increase in value over the long term, I'm willing to accept a little less dividend, anticipating that I will sell it 10, 15, 20 years down the line for much better value. But they're also at $173.89 a share. Now, this is as of the 24th of March, of course, but yeah, that's some pretty expensive stock. But here's what I like about them. Yeah, they're not qualified by cash flow per share or earnings per share, but if we look at their dividends per share, we see that they increase their dividends per share every year except as we go into 2024. Now, this is a potential flat year, but remember, this is the folks at Value Line Investment Survey, which, by the way, do not accept any advertising. They are completely supported by their subscription base. So all of their data and analysis is completely free of any bias. It's just hard data and then analysis of that data and their best prognostication of what could possibly go on there. So they're calling for the dividend increase coming from 22 into 23. So, good, strong 2023, but then be flat for 2024. Now, I've seen them do this before. And then as 2024 comes along and the company has stronger, does better, and they increase the dividends. And so it turns out to be, instead of a div 1, it could be a div 0 because they could end up increasing that dividend. It's still well within the area where they could increase that dividend. So Texas Instruments proves that that these semiconductor companies didn't have to lose this kind of money and have these kind of challenges during this COVID-induced fluctuations of the market. If we look at this graphically, you can see some ups and downs, but for the most part, their earnings and cash flows have been on a good trajectory, and their dividends have been on a good trajectory. And if we look at the year-to-year changes, we can see that the gold bars, which are the dividend per share, are always above the zero line. Well, let's just go ahead and take a look at those side by side. Here's the dividends per share for Texas Instruments in the red line, and Intel's dividends per share. And right here, this is where we see that drop. Let's do this. So here we see Intel's dividends per share drop off. And at worst case, we're going to have a flat line for Texas Instruments, but it could still potentially go up. Excuse me. Need some more coffee. All right. So Texas Instruments is probably a better investment if you can afford to buy in at $174 a share, right? If you can't, hey, Intel's still a reasonably good company, right? They're still going to be in the game. So they're still paying an interest, and there's every reason to expect that they will continue to increase in value going forward. So, in fact, if we look at earnings per share, excuse me, I'm having a coffee day today. I'm literally drinking coffee and coughing, so it's a coffee day today. But we see there that Intel is starting to recover here. So, it's not like Intel is necessarily a bad investment. It just isn't going to fit my investment standard moving forward. All right. So, Roadhog had to leave. Okay, Roadhog, take care, man. If you're still here, I'll see you later on. All right. So, interesting things going on in the investment world. Now, for those of you that are patrons, I wanted to let you know that you're going to get a cool benefit this week, because another one of the industries that was analyzed this week by, remember, this is what I use, the Value Line Investment Survey. And another one of the industries that was analyze this week is the computer and peripherals industry. So for my patrons, we're going to be talking about IBM, Big Blue. And I've got to decide. So if you're a patron and you have a preference here, let me know. But we could talk about Apple, Dell, HP, Logitech, Seagate. I don't want the video to go on forever, right? So we could do 2 or 3 of these, but you know, in 2 or 3, including IBM, could make for some fun discussion. So my patrons, if there's any of those companies there that you really want me to dive into, please let me know, and I'll put that into our Patreon video for this week. That'll be out on Wednesday. By the way, if you ever want to become a patron, it's really easy. I've got 3 levels, so it's not terribly expensive. There's a $5. There's the lowest entry point is $5. You know, so that's pretty cool. And then it goes up to, you know, there's a, what is it, 10 and 20, I think, are the next levels. And you get, you know, you're getting your own video every week. You're going to get this kind of analysis as part of that, that we feed in whenever it's interesting. Plus you get, you know, some cool stuff, right? You get to vote on the name of the shark that we're going to tag. And and our top tier great white sharks, they also get a quarterly surprise package. Ooh, we're getting near the end of March. I got to figure out what that's going to be too, don't I? Ooh, yeah, I got to talk to Mrs. Shark, see what we can come up with for the quarterly surprise package this quarter. Bill Fitzsimmons, welcome aboard, and Ralph Scrapper, welcome. Great to have you all here. All right, now it is time to talk about comments from YouTube. I'm gonna have to come up with some cool sound effects. I had an interesting comment, and it was on my short that I put out just recently with the O2 bottle. And essentially, it was just a thumbs down, right? Somebody didn't like the short, but I have no idea what they did not like about the short. You know, and it was interesting because there was another comment, somebody commented on the thumbs down and said, well, what didn't you like? Would, you know, that it was a short instead of being a long form content where we got more information, which I'll be happy to do if y'all want me to. But I just thought it was interesting that, you know, they dropped a thumbs down. They didn't leave any comments. I have no idea what they didn't like about it. So look, if I put a video up there and you don't like it, or there's something about it you don't agree with, come on, let me know, man. I need the info. Because I don't want to be putting out, you know, I don't want to put out bad stuff, right? So, you know, please, I encourage all of you, if when I put out a video and if you don't like that video, or if you disagree with something that I put out about the video, please feel free to let me know. The only thing I ask is that let's all be respectful of each other, right? We're all going to make mistakes. Lord knows I make plenty of mistakes. There was one video that I did where the whole video I was calling transistors oscillators, right? And I couldn't get it out of my head, right? And a bunch of people had pointed that out to me, and they were absolutely correct, right? So, you know, look, when we're making these videos, sometimes our brains get sidetracked. We call something the wrong thing. My buddy Raphael, he said, look, just start calling them thingies. Which I love, right? Because, you know, sometimes you can't get any trouble. You can't get into trouble if you call it a thingy, can you? So, hey, really, man, if for all of you, please feel free to let me know when I goon it up. All I ask is that you know, be respectful about it and say, hey, Shark, I think you gooned this one up, man. Or, you know, did you think about this or that, or, you know, whatever. I mean, we're there to learn, right? And we're there to share with each other. And frequently I have learned a lot from comments that people have left for me when they've either corrected me or they've asked me, you know, if I've thought about something from a different perspective. But what is not helpful at all is if you just leave a thumbs down, because that doesn't tell me anything. I have no way of knowing what I did that you didn't like. So And I imagine that you all have been, especially those of you that make videos, you've probably had the same thing go on as well, where somebody leaves a thumbs down or a bad comment or something like that. And it's like, yeah, okay, but what didn't you like, man? You know? So yeah, it's, I don't know, you know, what are you going to do? But that oxygen bottle is really kind of cool. So by the way, the oxygen bottle was a pickup that I did from one of my clients. It was with some other stuff they were getting rid of. It wasn't found on the street anywhere. And I'm trying to go through, I'm looking at all the stamps on it. You know, pressure bottles like that get stamped when they are visually inspected and when they are what's called hydro tested, where they put them under pressure and, you know, test them to make sure that they're still good. I'm looking to see when the last stamp was. I'm having a hard, this is a pretty old bottle, and I think these bottles may have exceeded their useful lifespan, and that's why they were being gotten rid of. It could have also just been that there were people that needed it in that household. They didn't need it anymore and they didn't know what to do with it. So, you know, they just put it out. Got to be really careful with any kind of pressure vessel, though, because, man, those things can become bombs really fast. Those are relatively small, so even still, they can be dangerous. Oxygen, if you release oxygen into an atmosphere that has fuel and some heat, you're going to have fire, maybe even an explosion. Oxygen is you know, one of the three legs of the fire triangle. So you got to be really careful. Even though oxygen is something that we need to live on, you can also get oxygen poisoning, by the way, if you have too much oxygen, but that's a whole different thing. So you got to be really careful when you off gas something like that. Make sure you're doing it, you know, in a relatively safe place, well ventilated, and you know, bleed it off slowly so that you're not necessarily creating a hazard for you. We always tend to think about that when we're doing something like a gas bottle, right? You know, LP gas or something like that, that we want to make sure it's well ventilated and we don't want to, you know, just drill a hole in it or something like that. But sometimes you may not think of it with something like oxygen bottle. So really, really careful there. All right, let's see some questions and answers as we start to get near the end and get ready to hand over to Scrapping Irish, who is probably getting his live stream set up here right now. So let's see, Bush Dog. Yeah, got some Remember Us creators are just normal people and mess things up from time to time. Yep, that's very true, man. We're all just human, right? We all goon it up. So, Nice Junk says, I get thumbs down on shorts all the time. It's just the nature of the beast. Oh, yeah. Yep. I hear you, man. Absolutely no issues there. And I have frequently told people that have asked me about getting into YouTube, and my comment is, you better have a thick skin, because sometimes people can cut sharply. All right, let's see. Urban Prospector. Okay, quick question. The small antenna found on the Wi-Fi boxes, does anyone know if it has copper or brass or any other metals inside? So the answer is yes. I'm not exactly sure which antennas, but if you're talking about those things that look like little fins, there can be a strip of copper antenna inside there. So yeah, but it, you know, is it worth breaking into to go after it? I've not found them to be terribly valuable when I've broken inside of it. It's not like there's a whole lot of it in there. So I wouldn't spend a lot of time worrying about breaking into them. In fact, I usually just take them off and chuck them in with my little shred bins, the mailboxes that I fill up, unless I sell them, which is interesting because I've had some people that have bought them. I think I have. Wait a minute. Let's see. Yeah. So here, I've got this Cisco antenna. I don't want to take it out of the. Yeah, it's sealed up in the bag. So I've got this available on eBay, and I have had, I've already sold a bunch of these. So, and if this is the kind of thing that you're talking about, then, you know, there's a little piece of metal inside there that is the antenna. But again, I don't think it's really worth digging into. Anybody else dig into those and go after that stuff that's in there? Let's see. Wait a minute. I'm going through the comments here to see. No, there was no old person connected to the bottle, skids and scrap. Come on. I'm not that bad yet, I don't think. Yeah, so you're scrapping. That's another important point. Make sure they aren't rentals from a medical company. So I actually picked up a gas bottle from a automobile repair shop that went out of business, and they used to have a fabricator. So I ended up with this gas bottle, and I was able to figure out what company they had leased it from. I got hold of the company, and they said, yeah, we were wondering what's happened with those folks. They've not returned any of our calls. They haven't paid the rental in a long time. And so essentially, you know, they just took the bottle back. And I didn't even get a finder's fee. That was a real bummer. That was not very nice of them. I did try to talk them into a finder's fee, and they said, yeah, no, in fact, you know, it's ours. We want it back. So, all right, Bush Dog, that antenna will have a small board inside, small tin wire, and maybe some brass. Yep, there you go. Yep. But it's worth a lot more to me trying to sell it rather than scrap it, because I have been selling these. So they have actually sold relatively well. So I guess it's that Cisco name. People love the Cisco name. All right. It is time to hand over to Scrapping Irish. Now, if you have autoplay enabled, what you're going to see is when I end this stream, it's going to go right over to Scrapping Irish. You won't have to do anything. If you do not have autoplay enabled, then you may get a link. Whatever process you decide to use, I look forward to seeing all of you over on Scrapping Irish's channel. Have a great week, everybody. Be safe.